What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review episode 4 of season 3 of Legion, the 23rd chapter in this ongoing series. It's starting to feel a lot like Noah Hawley is hell-bent upon going out on a high note by hurling everything at us this season, including the kitchen sink. This was easily one of the most satisfying episodes of all 3 seasons, with an expert blend of science fiction and horror, as we see Switch's time demons, otherwise known as the Time Eaters, completely running amok. I don't want to start celebrating prematurely, but if Noah Hawley is able to sustain this level of storytelling for the next few episodes, we might be about to see one of those rare situations where a show does not overstay its welcome and manages to wrap up all loose ends and draw its story to a close at a creative peak. Because as much as I love this show and find it to be one of the most innovative and imaginative series to be found on TV right now, Seasons 1 and 2 definitely have their fair share of episodes that I found to be frustrating, basically exercises in being strange for their own sake instead of telling a great story. But tonight's episode was a perfect harmony of all the deranged weirdness that fans of the show expect, while simultaneously delivering a great little plot where the Time Eaters are threatening to unravel reality all around our characters. A lesser show would simply have the characters explain to us the problem at hand, but this episode found several inventive ways to depict this time crisis in a purely visual fashion. That's usually the bread and butter of cinema, but at this point, Noah Hawley, he's proven himself over and over again to be one of the most cinematic storytellers on television. Initially, we see that Ptonomy is compromised, as are many computers around the world, as localized and individual time starts to go all screwy. We see additional problems like rapidly decaying fruit. Time is quite literally being eaten away. And Sid quickly realizes that David might be about to inadvertently bring about the end of the world, because as we soon see, David is trying to manipulate the past where he might prevent his father from ever taking that fateful trip that led to the Shadow King ruining baby David's life. Switch finally gives David the full details on what she describes as the time demons who live outside of time and are always trying to find their way in. And as creepy and unsettling as they might be, I adored these little devils. The show clearly took some inspiration for their design from the blue meanies featured in one of the best animated movies ever made, Yellow Submarine. I would never encourage anyone out there to take mind-altering substances to watch a movie, but if that's already your thing, you will find Yellow Submarine to be fascinating. In any event, Switch is clearly overusing her powers because all of her teeth are starting to loosen up in her gums. It was absolutely disgusting, and she warns David that the more doors they open, the more agitated these demons will become. Arguably the most intimidating moment of all episode, however, is when we see David nearly go fully psycho on his friends, with the room darkening all around him, as Lenny basically tells him to get mad and tackle this problem head on. As powerful as David might be, he still remains incredibly sensitive and prone to temper tantrums. And initially, David is completely ineffectual when it comes to fighting these demons. In his first unsuccessful attempt at fighting them, it was so damn cool because you hear the sounds of a ticking clock in the background as the creatures are basically moving in a few frames at a time before just circling in, overpowering him, and taking David away. And while David might seem helpless against them, it's actually Farouk who totally steps up this episode. He hacks off an arm of what he describes as a time eater, creatures that basically eat time like parasites, and he tells Division 3 that the only way to fight them is by stepping into the time between time. And once again, the visual inventiveness of the show is just delightful to behold, because the time between time is depicted like old pictures in a slideshow. And for younger viewers out there, I don't know if they even know what a slideshow is, but look it up on the internet. But what's cool about this slideshow is that in this environment, the Time Eaters have lost their strategic advantage, and we see Carrie laying waste to several of them, as does Farouk, who pulls his badass curved sword straight from his mouth for battle. Overall, Farouk this season has just been cool beyond words. But I mentioned before how this episode features certain horror ingredients, specifically when the Time Eaters are tormenting one of their victims. In Lenny's case, they force her to watch her unborn child be born and then age right before her eyes in various stages until nothing is left but dust. And Lenny's just left on the floor, wailing in sorrow. And in David's case, the Time Eaters allow him to spend time in the company of his mother when she's in a concentration camp. But David soon realizes this is all an elaborate illusion. But when he tries to fight back, he gets caught in this time loop over and over again. But finally, in one of his most kick-ass hero moments all season, David just basically goes into full God mode, appearing in several timelines at once, whereupon he incinerates one Time Eater and tells another one to eat shit and go away, or he'll kill them all. The creature seems to get the message, and the Time Eaters quickly retreat. But as David learns at the end of the episode, in spite of his short-term victory, Division 3 actually scored a major win this episode as well, with Carrie successfully escaping from David's compound, and he took Switch along with him. David's massive strategic advantage is now in the hands of his enemies. If you remember, in the first episode of this season, it was only because of Switch that the 2 killings of David were able to be undone. So he officially declares war, and I'm all for watching David throw down with Division 3 in the episodes to come. But something tells me that the combination of Farouk with Switch's abilities are about to make David's life a living hell. So that's all I got for now. Next week's episode seems to suggest that David remains determined to change the past, even if it costs him the lives of all of his former friends at Division 3. But overall, I'm having an absolute blast with this season. Can't wait to see what surprises Noah Hawley might have in store for us in the future. But if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like the video, subscribe to my channel, all that good stuff. If you want to talk more about Legion or comics or whatever, you can find me on Twitter at Colbrax. But I can't thank you enough for watching my video. I appreciate the support. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.